You see this all the time with, oh, I'm going to put a couple checks into a company and I'm going to be an angel. And then their first 5 checks go to zero. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to give up because this is silly or something. And it's, yeah, if you're not going to really pay attention and try to figure out what's happening, how many bets you're making, I can see why this is known as the money sucking, where you just give your money away type of thing. But it's no, it's like an investment. You should be serious about it and track this stuff as well as you can and be proactive about this stuff too.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing, what it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company. If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. In this episode, I'm talking with Zach Holman, early GitHub engineer turned prolific angel investor and founder of Signed.com, a platform that's redefining how investors track their portfolios. Zach reveals why even the savviest investors struggle with messy spreadsheets and how AI can automate the grunt work of portfolio tracking, and what it's really like to invest in both hot startups and sports teams. Yes, including European women's soccer. We also discuss how Signed can help with wrangling your K1s and avoid tax headaches. Enjoy the show. Zach, welcome to the Angel Next Door podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I am interested to hear what you've been building. Okay. I know personally, I have a spreadsheet to track my personal angel investments, and it's gotten a little gnarly, let's just say, over the last couple of years, which is, I'm sure, what you've heard a lot. And so you built a company that we're going to talk all about. But I would love to hear more about your early work. You were with GitHub and exited that as a founder, right? And then became early employee. Okay.
Yeah.
And then became an angel investor yourself, which led you to this horrific problem that we have as angel investors in how do we track everything. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. I started a small company before GitHub. It was one of those where you learned a lot about how not to run a startup. But I had good people. It was fun. It was interesting for a couple of years, and then lucked into getting a job at GitHub in 2010. There for 5 years. Afterwards, moved in, started doing advising. So advised GitLab and a couple other companies. And then I realized advising is like this whole investing thing, except without money or something. So I was like, I guess angel investing is kind of the next best step. So I've been doing that for 7-8 years now. I really enjoy it. And I think it's a really interesting way, especially coming from where I was coming from, where GitHub was like, I was so focused on this one thing for 5 years. And this is what I'm going to do and become an expert at. And then angel is just, you get to learn this company and then you talk to this company and you get to experience a whole bunch of different people and setups and target markets and stuff like that. So
tell us, what did GitHub do exactly?
So GitHub is, it's like the center of where software development is done. So GitHub helps you basically as you write code, unless you're doing it by yourself, or even if you're doing it by yourself, you're going to have to share that code with somebody else, another developer or your manager or something like that. So it's a centralized place to code together, basically. That's a very simple way of putting it. But yeah, it grew pretty big. Pretty much every part of software is impacted by GitHub at this point, for better and for worse. And then they got acquired by Microsoft in 2017 or so. So yeah.
Nice. All right. So now you've become an angel investor and you're realizing we got a substantial problem when it comes to tracking.
Yes. I remember, so I did my first investment in 2018 or something like that. And I remember we were asking like Leah Culver, like the only close friend I knew that was really into angel. I was like, okay, you're a techie, you invest in tech companies. Like, how do you track all this sort of stuff? And she's just like, I don't know, I got like a spreadsheet. And I always thought that was really weird because it's like investors, especially in tech investing, like you'd think they would have really cool bespoke things built for the industry. And I was like, maybe they're just focusing on their portfolio companies or something. So I did my spreadsheet and then another spreadsheet and another. I was going through 3-4 iterations of different spreadsheets of varying amounts of, I hate this is terrible. Because at this point, I guess I've invested in a couple hundred companies. I think it's really hard to do that just in a spreadsheet form and trying to figure things out and where to go from this. So I'd worked on a couple other sort of startups over the last 10 years or something like that. One in calendar space, one in kind of sports and stuff. And the last one was like in sports. And I was kind of like, well, this is great, but I'm not a high school soccer player anymore. So I can't use this on my day-to-day basis. And that's what I miss about GitHub so much, is I could build stuff and then dog food it and then fix the product in my own kind of use case. And that whole cycle is really great for me. So this was one where I was like, I'm angel investing, spending a lot of my time doing that. I kind of miss having that dog fooding ability. Let's just productize what I've been doing, angel investing, and make it what I've always wanted for the last 7-8 years of tracking this sort of stuff. So kind of came from that.
Wow. Okay. So explain Signed. What does it act? What does it really do? How hard would it be to get all the things, all of the spreadsheets onto it?
It mostly stemmed from just me being unhappy with my own spreadsheet and very simple things of, am I tracking price per share or number of shares or safe conversions or anything like that at the very basic level? And it's no, I wasn't, or I was trying to, and then it got out of date and all the things that you probably run into your own spreadsheets and stuff like that. So I started just building something around that for myself to just track the finances and that side of things. And then it's just grown into a lot of other things too. You can forward your investor updates from your companies to it, and then we'll use AI, because you have to use AI for everything now, but use AI to parse it, figure out what metrics they're saying, what metrics they're predicting for next month. And then you can actually go back a month from now and see that their prediction actually match up with the actual revenue that they posted and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of things you can do around how do I become a better advisor for these companies that I've invested in. At least certainly there's a lot of ways to be an angel investor, but I want to be more of an active one and talk to my founders when I can, or figure out when the last time I've heard from them. Just being able to answer that question with a spreadsheet was very difficult. And now I can sort by all my companies, which one, it's been a quarter since I've heard from them. Maybe I should reach out and see what they're doing and stuff like that. It's all of these things where it's once you actually start building it and you're like, wow, I can do this and I can improve this and keep notes on founders and things like that. So it's been really fun for me personally. I always said like, maybe there's only going to be one user in the world, but it's still worth it for me because I really want this for myself.
That's cool. Okay, so let's break this down. So if hypothetically two people are invested in the same company and one of them puts the company up on the platform, then does the other person, can they say, oh, I'm an investor in that, and it'll pull the information, or do you have to, how does that work?
Not yet. I have some ideas for that in the future, but the biggest thing is just privacy of data. And like you say you've invested in SpaceX, when you have all private information or something, and then I just say, I've also invested in SpaceX, and then I can get all of your,
oh, I see.
It will not be cool. So
yeah.
There is some things we can do around that, especially around the non-cap table or legalese and stuff like that. We'll probably investigate in the future. But a lot of it is just like, how do you get your own house in order, rather than we have a bunch of really other cool sharing a pitch, for example. If you find a company that you really like, usually that's in a weird email thread, and then you do a CC dance of, oh, CC, here's the founder if you want to talk to them. Then it gets awkward. So I have a lot of things in mind for like how to improve that workflow as well and make it more of a kind of a social, as a social network. What investing is, you talk to other founders, other investors and stuff like that. There are things in mind for that, but it's also, biggest thing is you just don't share this important financial data and stuff as well.
Right. Okay, then what about funds? So you've got the funds and then you've got the companies within the funds. How do you handle that?
So right now it's just mostly just tracking at a fund level, or if you've invested in fund 1, fund 2, fund 3, you can get a breakdown of all 3 of those funds within that main fund manager. I think down the line, we launched last month or something, so there's still lots to do.
We're in the early days. I got
early days, but that's definitely something I want to do, is when you get kind of like the quarterly updates and stuff from your fund, being able to match the breakdown of this is how much we invested in this company, and then being able to look through your own profile into whatever funds you've invested in, and then figure out, oh, I've 0.005% of this company through this fund or something. So I think there's a lot of really interesting ways. Right now it's just opaque. It's just kind of like, I'll get a weird PDF from the fund and I'm like, cool, what do I do with this information? But I think there's a lot of more interesting things you can do once you start building that portfolio out and stuff.
Okay. And then what happens when somebody has an exit?
Yeah, first of all, what's an exit?
No, lately.
There,
nobody knows.
But yeah, it's similar with a lot of what you might do in a spreadsheet type of thing, either tracking the full exit. At least in my experience, it's not usually here's your money. It's here's your money, and then 12 months from now, you get some more, and then a little bit more, or converts into public stock, or a mixture of cash. And so it's a pain. There's a lot to do along those levels too, but just being able to track like, this is money in versus money out. We also try to help out with the QSBS treatment or any other tax related stuff.
You're speaking my language here. Yep.
Yes. Because it's like, I'll also invest out of a Roth from time to time, and it's my returns in this are a lot different from my returns in a taxable account type of thing. So there's a lot to do around that. And just, it was funny, as we launched in like February, March of this year, it was like tax day's coming up soon. So we got some things ready for that, but I think by next year, we'll be able to just push out, send this zip or file or something to your CPA, and then hopefully you have less of a headache around tax day and stuff. And also have some ideas for K1s, which are just piling up, and it's just so much fun these days, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because we're all sitting around waiting for K1s till the 11th hour.
Yeah. I'll never get to file in April again. So
no. Yeah. I try to explain that to new angel investors. They're like, well, I need it by April 15th. I'm like, you don't. You got to file an extension. Welcome.
I see that it's one of my investments is Oakland Roots, which is a soccer team in Oakland, and they did a crowdfund campaign. So a lot of the fans put money in to own a small part of the club as well. And that was like the number one thing. It was like, wait, I can't file my taxes until you do this, but like you don't know when this is going to be. And I'm like, oh, honey, this is my whole life now is just waiting on K1s to be finalized and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yay, our tax system. Fantastic.
Okay, so wait a minute. So crowdfunding, you were getting a K1 because like what kind of platform were you? Because nowadays they usually just put it in a safe and then you don't have to get a K1.
Yeah, that one was through WeFunder, and they did a separate SPV
I see.
get in because it was also, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 investors or something like that.
Yeah.
You got to do some sort of intermediary. So they were like, what am I doing with it? What is a K1 type of thing? So it's so much fun.
Oh, yes. Okay, so wait a minute. So what is your idea then with the K1? So you'd be able to keep them there and track them year over year on what?
Yeah, having much better idea of who issues K1s, who doesn't. We're
Right.
talking with friends who's a very active user, and what if you just make like an audit page of this is what I expect to be able to turn over to my CPA or something at this point of the year, or based on what happened last year, what returns I've had this year and stuff. So there's a lot you can do around trying to figure out how this system even works, which never seems like it does work at any given point, but doing the best we can, I guess. So
Yeah. No, I think it would be good too. Like, especially if you get a K1 for a fund, the differences between what happened last year, what happened the year before that, now this year, like this doesn't look, well, not that it doesn't look right, but it's different. So like, why is it different? So that as an investor, we can understand what happened because maybe there was like a liquidity event within the fund or they did a write-off or whatever the story is.
yeah, and there's a lot of that stuff like mistakes do happen, and it's this is not something we have currently, but down the line it would be great to be able to look at your legal docs for the safe 6 years ago and then match it up with what you're actually getting or what is reported to one or something like that. It's just I don't know another kind of checkup on is this accurate basically. But
Yeah. Okay, so then Carta, because a lot, and I know as angels we don't use Carta. I don't have to pay like for a Carta account, but I have a lot of stuff that comes to me through Carta, like either the quarterly reports, or my actual shares and all of the K1s. So like, I think I know, but explain the difference between Carta versus Assign.com.
yeah, Carta is more like the holding custodian of like how many shares do I have? Is the safe still active or did it get canceled and then reissued as shares type of thing? It can be frustrating because it's not always up to date and you're like dependent on is the founder ever going to update this type of thing? Like many times I'll get the investor update and say, oh yeah, we just raised a Series B or something like that. And then Carta won't update for 9 months or something, but it's helpful for me to be able to update or at least estimate what my holding is prior to. And then all sorts of, I can write notes and stuff like that, or just keeping track of my own thing and then matching it up against what Carta will eventually say. Fortunately, it's tricky to deal with people like Carta who don't necessarily have like APIs and make it easy to extract that stuff out. We do that for AngelList. So if you have an AngelList portfolio or any syndicates you've invested in, you can just export that. And then anytime you want, drag and drop it into Signed. And then it just figures out what changes are. Cause it's another thing I could go on for this for a long time, but like AngelList doesn't really tell you anything of what you've invested in. Like they'll just silently update, oh, now this is gone to 0 or this has gone up 20%. They don't really tell you that. So that's been fun to just be able to export my portfolio every month, usually in the start of the month. And then it actually tells me like, oh yeah, this one that you invested in 7 years ago is doubled now or something. So little things like that. It's like, I don't know, getting back to, even if you don't use Signed, just being able to track this, if setting up your spreadsheets to be able to have a monthly check-in and making sure how things have changed and stuff. I think that was the biggest unlock for me was just becoming much more serious about tracking this stuff. Because otherwise it's very easy. You see this all the time with, oh, I'm going to put a couple checks into a company and I'm going to be an angel. And then their first 5 checks go to 0. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to give up because this is silly or something. And it's, yeah, if you're not going to really pay attention and try to figure out what's happening, how many bets you're making, I can see why this is known as the money sucking, where you just give your money away type of thing. But it's like an investment. You should be serious about it and track this stuff as well as you can and be proactive about this stuff too.
Yeah. So let's say there's somebody who may remain nameless like me, who it has the spreadsheet with the stuff. Like, how hard is it to get it uploaded, and how does that really work in reality? Because I've tried to use a couple of things in the past, but it just seems so laborious just to get all the information. I was like, my spreadsheet's just easier.
Yeah, wildly difficult because like I built an importer where you can export your spreadsheet and upload it. And I was like, oh yeah, we have AI. It's very good at figuring this stuff out. I don't know, after talking with a lot of early users and seeing how their spreadsheets are, there are a lot that just didn't track anything, didn't even have a spreadsheet. So I was like, you can't use the importer if you don't have data for it and stuff.
Right.
Some that were just very, I put $10,000 in 2013 and that's it. Well, I'm like, are you tracking price per share? Was this a safe? How does it converge or something? And
Right.
so if you upload something like that, it's a lot harder for any system to try and figure out what does this actually mean and how much is this worth. Regardless of signed and stuff, that's the first step is tracking. I think the unlock for me a couple of years ago, I was asking my friend about this sort of stuff, and he sent me his Notion template or something, and he had set it up where one sheet was just companies, and then background information, URLs, stuff like that, notes, and then they also linked to a separate one that was just transactions. So it's I bought this much of safe now, and then that would later get converted or something, and just having a list of just transactions, that alone really opened up a better understanding of where am I currently at right now, rather than just doing the $10,000 check in this and never really updating it. And the nice part, if you do go to something like Signed, if you do have like transaction-based stuff, then it's super easy to just suck all that in and set it up, present it to you and graph it and all those fun things too.
And it's a document holder also. So if it's a place where you could keep all your documents in one.
Yeah, which I was horrible at. I didn't realize that until I was starting to build it. And I was like, it's in my inbox. So I can always go find it or something. And then every now and then I'd be like, oh, what was the terms on this one? I really need to go back. And I'm like, then I got to go back and Google search doesn't work as well as it used to and all this sort of stuff. So I've just been dropping everything into Signed. And
what about if you have a bunch of stuff in DocuSign? Can that import that?
not like directly, but if you download the PDF.
Download it, yeah. And then just.
Yeah. And a lot of that one of the things I'm working on probably the next week or two of shipping is once it's uploaded, just asking Signed, like, tell me about this company. You can use like AI to read like the actual laborious safes or safes are easy, but like any sort of weird legal documentation or pitch decks or something and be like, what tech platform are they building on? Or what type of terms are involved with this and stuff. So there's a lot of that stuff where like, I just never tracked any of my legal docs because I assumed I could get them or download them from DocuSign at some point or something will work out. And it turned out in practice, I would just never look at them again, which is probably getting back to the point of just being diligent and keeping track of this stuff is for your benefit. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So you can upload the documents and then the AI that you're using for the platform will actually be able to, you can interact with it is what you're saying. You could get it to read the documents. You could ask it questions. You could also figure out if you had the data, what your percentage of ownership is, that type of thing.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. Then I also use it for pitch decks. So if somebody sends me a pitch, I just immediately forward it to Signed, or you could also submit through Signed and I get all that data inside of your pipeline right away. And then it'll go through the pitch deck, figure out like some competitors that it may not have seen, give it like a quick analysis of who am I talking to before I go to this meeting, try to figure out like what questions I should ask about, what I should focus on.
That's good.
How do I be better angel? How do I look more interesting? How do I look more knowledgeable of what I want to ask the question for rather than going into a call and just being like, who are you? What do you do? You can go from there type of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sports. So you've invested in some soccer clubs, you said. Women's sports, of course, is very hot right now. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I played soccer growing up, only through like high school and then a little bit every now and then still, but just fell in love with being a fan. And then at some point after I did a couple of years angel investing, and I'd always go to bars and be like, oh, I wish I could just invest in American soccer because I think it's just going to grow up and stuff. And eventually I was like, well, I guess I could. It's like angel investing, but in a very different context. So I just cold DM'd the Open Roots chairman and then put a check in not too long after that. So I've been with them for 5 years. I get hooked up with a new ownership group for Cagliari in Serie A in Italy. So I just joined their ownership group at the end of last year. I invested in a fund that they basically buy up a European women's league clubs in Europe and stuff. So they've been doing really interesting. And European women's soccer has been growing like crazy. So all this stuff, it's just like, my focus tends to be like developer tools and then like soccer or sports in general. And I'm like, isn't that a combination that really has much to do with each other? But that's also like why I like angel investing is I get to invest in what I'm interested in and stuff. Like, and then I feel like one of the options is, should I raise like a small fund and then really go into like developer tools or something? And I'm like, hey, then you have to deal with LPs. They're all jerks. I want to be the jerk instead. And then B, I get to just invest in things that are interesting or things that don't necessarily mean gigantic returns. It's just, I really like you, or I really like the space, or I'm really interested. This is fiscally irresponsible from a fund perspective, but as an angel, it gives you a lot more flexibility in doing something like that. So I think that's one of the best parts about investing in the way that we all invest and stuff.
Interesting. Zach, this is so fascinating. And actually, I was looking at the website and your prices are reasonable. It seems you have a free one if you just have a couple investments, but then like you could be at the angel level, or if you're more an institutional investor, then you have that tier too. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's originally I was going to do it based on like how much you have invested, which sounded great in theory.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. That'd be a
yeah,
little.
but then it gets into the whole like I don't want to. There's one beta tester that I had that I knew he had said he put in his founder equity, which on paper was millions of dollars, but it's also like it's not really a full like paper money and stuff. And I don't want you to get of on paper this investment's crushing it, so I'm gonna end up paying more. So that makes me want to not put
Put it in there.
things
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, I want more people to track stuff because I think this is helpful for the entire sector if everyone tracks this stuff. So eventually it's mostly just on features. So it's like the high end is if you need a lot of tax help, if you have tons of K1s and stuff, we'll help you with that. And then that makes sense to pay for rather than trying to gate the amount of money or investments and stuff that you make. But yeah.
Cool. All right. So I still, we started talking about this before we started recording, but I think it's cool that you have sign.com as the URL because it's very hard nowadays to get a very simple word that's common. .com. So cool. So we will definitely send people to sign.com to find out more about what you're building. Where else can they find you?
ZachHolman.com is where I write a bunch of stuff. Sometimes they're good posts, sometimes they're average posts or terrible posts, but I've been doing a lot more writing on angel investing and stuff too, which again, it's not billions of angel investors out there, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff. I mean, that's why I was interested in this podcast. I mean, talking about this stuff and making it less, I don't know, awkward. Anything with money feels really weird. And it's like, especially angel investors, oh, you're a billionaire and you're just trying to do stuff. And it's like, it's never been easier to go in with $1,000 or less. Or I just had a post where it's like, yeah, you can angel invest for free sometimes if you just have a really good network or just do the advising thing. It's basically the same thing. You're not going to get life-changing money from that, but it's a place to start even if you don't have the net worth to support $5 million checks or something like that. Yeah, I think it's just talking about this stuff is great. That's why I love to talk about it and stuff. So yeah. All right, get off my class.
All right, Zach, we will make sure to put all these things in the show notes so that people can go check you out and check out sign.com. And thank you so much for sharing this with and for building it because we need it.
You're very welcome. Again, I built it for me, but
okay,
if other people can like
it's
it
all
too.
about you. No, it's all about me. That's what I tell my husband all the time.
We're all selfish people. It's fine.
Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. Well, Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee. My views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.